It's a Friday edition here on Zero Blog 30, and today we have 4+ magazines, rounds in the magazine. We have a little bit more topics than just rounds, but we're going to fire through them anyway. Round number one, time to update the safety brief because, longtime stoolie Shakira was involved with a wild boar attack while she was in Spain. I wouldn't have thought Spain would be a spot where you got attacked by a wild boar. I would have thought it was more like Texas because they're all over the place out here. Apparently, they're everywhere in Spain, too. Round number two, it's a story fit for Netflix because we have a former Army Ranger who faces extradition charges to the Netherlands, where he's wanted for being a hitman that murdered a German businessman. Those kind of stories are popping up way too often from the Special Forces crew. Stop assassinating people. What do you got? They did it. Where was it? Haiti, I think they went down to Haiti and they were fucking around.
Something
they
like
got that one Japanese businessman in the trunk of like a luggage that he was trying to go places. Special Forces. We need to start doing something now that we're vetted all the different Afghan folks that are coming. We need to focus on vetting these Special Forces, Bubba's. Because what are you doing, guys?
Can't just let them run amok.
They're building bars in Iraq. They're doing all kinds of crazy shit. Get it together. And round number three, the Taliban is sick and tired of their boots acting like nasty little turds with their cell phones, taking selfies and growing their hair out, being out of reg. So they got slapped. There's a couple Taliban members who got put on fire watch by the head Taliban guy, which I imagine their fire watch is not an enjoyable time because I can't imagine that the Taliban has very strict hazing rules.
No, they probably let it fly fast and loose.
They play very fast and loose with their hazing rules. And finally, round number four, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs and another general went before both houses of Congress this week, and it was an absolute shit show. And I think it shows exactly what's wrong with America. In a nutshell, in a couple hearings, it was god awful. God awful. And some of these congressmen, I wish I could fight Matt Gaetz. I'm going to start the show off just by that. Rough and rowdy. He just has the kind of head that you could just fuck him up. Like the way that his forehead is so long and it goes back. He's the kind of person that throwing some jabs, he would get little goosebumps like all over his head, the little eggs all over the spot. He would look like ass, man. Matt Gaetz is a piece of shit. And all that is going to be what?
Oh, sorry. I random Matt Gaetz thing. I follow this congressional staffer who had helped me when the digital Dunkirk thing was going on. And he tweeted out just randomly the other day, a low-level staffer is like, I was alone in the basement of the whatever that building is that we've been to for interviews and stuff.
The Rayburn
and
building?
The elevator doors opened and there was just Matt Gaetz just standing alone in the basement. And I hit door close. I was like, no. It was just really creepy.
You're garbage when even people in your own party are like, you're the worst, man.
Yeah.
Like,
not great.
Worst. And you know where he's from? He's my wife's mom's congressman.
Oh, I thought you were about to say he's my wife's mom's best friend or some such thing like that.
Probably do get along really well. I wouldn't doubt that at all. Same type of wild ideology going on in that group. My wife will be glad that I mentioned that for sure. And all of that today is going to be brought to you by our good friends at BetterHelp. BetterHelp is changing the game. I need to tell you something about BetterHelp because BetterHelp has been legitimately a lifesaver and for so many people. And one of the things that I like best is my memory sucks. I've talked about it a lot on this show. They have this app that I've never been able to use before, like any other type of therapy. And I've done a lot of therapy. I've been a big therapy guy for a long time. I've gone through TRICARE, the VA, like so many different programs outside of the like Wounded Warrior stuff. I've done all of it. This one, I have a little app on my phone and I'm going to show it to you. So if you're just listening in your car, go back and watch it on video on YouTube. You can check it out, Zero Blog 30 podcast on YouTube. All of our shows are on there now, by the way. So if you want to see Kate laughing or Kate when she gets embarrassed, when we start talking about 23-year-old Kate, that is a good place for you to try it. But BetterHelp has, let me make sure that I can't, okay. I don't want to show my actual therapist name, but there's this app that they have and you can, on the app, you can just talk to your therapist whenever. And I use it as like the notes app. So if I have something that I want to talk about, I just pull it out, type it in there. Because before there's no shot I was doing that. I'm not a notes guy. I've never been a notes guy, but now that it's in my pocket, I could just be like, do, and she'll use and respond. Cool. I'll put that on our little list to talk about. If you want something like that, if that's helpful to you, therapy is going to be helpful to you. Make sure you go to BetterHelp, betterhelp.com/0. You're going to get 10% off your first month at BetterHelp. That is BETTERHELP.com/0. Love those folks over at BetterHelp, and big things coming down the pipe too with BetterHelp. I'm excited about that. Should be next week that we have a big announcement.
Ooh, teaser.
Teaser action. Exactly right. All right, let's get started with the show. We would be remiss if we didn't start out the show with probably the story that has taken the military. I would say it's a divisive story within the military, and certain people that I follow love this guy. Certain people that I follow hate this guy now. When it first started out, the first story came out about the lieutenant colonel in the Marine Corps last name Scheller. Whenever this story came out, I was on board big time with what he was saying. He was in uniform. He had his lieutenant colonel chevrons on. He was sitting in his office and he was talking about the problems that were going on with the withdrawal and how there's all kinds of issues. Kate, you have something to add?
Well, yeah, it's just so you and I both blogged him early on, Lieutenant Colonel Stuart Scheller. He's all over Facebook, all over social media. But that first video, he described how so many of us felt. We want accountability. Who is responsible for this mess? Somebody stand up and take accountability. And we
were all like cheering it. Cons too, I said, I think even Cons liked it.
No, I was impressed by his ability to speak as succinctly as he did in the beginning and go against the grain, and especially doing it in uniform was a risky move, but he did it anyway.
But so we were all kind of praising him. Then a second video came out, and within the first 10 seconds of the second video, this was the sound that came out of me. I was like,
yeah, where you're like, I'm not sure what because you have, if you're going to do this, your motivations and your intent have to be pure the entire time,
right?
Because it can become like almost a grandstanding type of thing. And I think for me as a staff NCO Marine, I will always identify that way. Looking after the institution of the Marine Corps is important. Correcting the deficiencies within the institution is also very important, but there's a correct way to do that. And I think sometimes, occasionally, going outside of the norms is effective. And I think that first video was effective. It got all of the junior troops on his side. It got a lot of senior troops on his side too, not just junior troops, but a lot of people were like, yes, we've experienced this problem. We recognize. But then you go into the second video and it becomes more personal, where he's talking about wanting the ability to bring everything down, as opposed to when his initial talk was, we need accountability. Like, we as a group, we need collective accountability. You started, in my opinion, seeing the shift toward the individual, where the things became more so about him and his family and the things that he was going through and the legal cases. And now he's essentially in bed with the organization with Eddie Gallagher, who was convicted, not convicted, expunged. He got pardoned by Trump and for war crimes and things like that. And now they've raised $1 million. They're trying to raise $2 million.
They just upped it. Yeah. Now they want to raise $2 million. And that makes me go,
And he was given a direct order by his chain of command: do not go on social media and disparage your chain of command anymore. Like, and that's a lawful order. Like, you're not allowed to do that anyways. Like, and them giving him this much leeway was more than I would have expected from the Marine Corps. I would have expected the hammer to come down quickly.
Right, because even in the first video, go ahead.
Article 88, contempt towards officials. Article 90, willful disobeying superior commission officers. Article 92, failure to obey, blah, blah, blah. Article 133. But he's become this, like, again, he's become this darling. But I feel like people are paying attention more to that first message. And I feel like anybody with a pretty even keel view looking at this should be making that sound that,
well, no, so you got to go back. You got to go beyond the first message. So here's what I think. I've never met this man, never spoken to him. His first message was great, but then he got all of the praise heaped on him on social media. So he said to himself, all right, I got to keep this thing going, got to keep the momentum rolling. And he doubled down on it. And I think that's where he got himself in trouble. Because I think even in the first video, he should not have said a lot of the things that he said. And even by the letter of the law, that first video could have gotten him into a lot of trouble. So they gave him that pass, which you said you were surprised about. I was too. But then he just got himself in trouble by continuing to double down. And I think he got a little taste of the notoriety, even outside of just the military community. And I think that fed his ego a little bit. And as we've seen with so many people, you feed the ego and things can get out of hand very quickly.
And I think a lot of it is intention. I think his intention at the onset was very good and most likely very pure. But then you see the developments that happen. His wife left, is no longer with his kids. And it almost became this perfect storm of where he can lose the sense of who he is.
And we didn't want to talk about it because we were like, maybe this is a severe mental health issue. Like that's what it seemed like to us. We didn't want to conflate that.
We not only did that, I told Kate I didn't want to write any more blogs about it on Barstool. We took down everything from our Instagram about it because I looked at it and I thought it seems to me like he's going through a mental health crisis. He's losing his family. He's about to lose his career. He's going to lose his pension. Things could spiral out of control really quickly. Well, he got the lawful order. He went back on Facebook this weekend and wrote this long, damn near what you would have to classify as a manifesto. Mm-hmm. And he writes this out on Facebook and says at the end of it, Colonel, have the MPs ready to pick me up at 8:00 on Monday morning. I'll be ready to go to the brig. He writes it at the end. And so to me, that's like, you know what's going on. You know what you're doing. This is not going to change anything. Now, what you said at the beginning could cause senior leaders, I think, to be like, we do owe the Marines this. We owe real accountability, a real after action report, and how we look at the 20 years. We owe them that. They need to get that. And now you change it where it's like, fuck this dude. Like if I was a general and I was a high ranking person and I was looking at this guy, you lose all credibility when you do this. And there's been several different media outlets who have gone on and praised him. And this is what we need. I couldn't disagree more with that. This is not what we need.
No,
we need leaders who have the thought process of what happened in the first video to act on it in the correct manner, to act on it inside of your chain of command and continue to rise through the ranks so that you can be the change. Lieutenant Colonel Scheller, if he had the ability to make the change, he could have stayed in the Marine Corps longer and rose to that rank because by all accounts, he was a great officer. So in order to rise to those ranks, you can make effective change the more rank that you put on your collar. He won't be able to do that now.
Like and this will only create more division too. Saying follow me and we will bring the whole fucking system down. We're just getting started.
Delusions
and then
of
saying
grandeur.
He's giving up his commission because he doesn't want a single dollar. And then immediately asking for money from rich philanthropists and blue collar workers. And then he says, I don't want a single dollar. Well, they raised $1 million and then surprise, they've upped it to now hey, everyone, we're going for $2 million now for him. It's like, what the fuck's going on here? It's
coming off as a big time grift. And I agreed with the first statement. I agreed with that there does need to be big time change. There needs to be accountability. This is not the way to do it. No. And it's just not. And anybody, like so many people I see, I looked at Task and Purpose's Instagram and they posted their blog about what was going on whenever he was put in the brig, because he was put in the brig. And so many people were like, they need to let him out. This is what we need from leaders. And I'm like, what are we teaching about leadership traits? Like, because that, you guys know, that's a big passion of mine, is about being a leader, being an effective leader, and teaching your troops the right way and teaching your people the right way. This is not the right way to do things. There's a right way and a wrong way. You could say the military is fucked up in a lot of levels, because it is. But if you're not a Lance Corporal, Lieutenant Colonel, you're a fucking Lieutenant Colonel. You should have acted like one.
You have to have that pause that allows you to say, okay, if I continue down this path, what will ultimately happen? And it seems as though he never got to that point. He just jumped and carried on with that momentum, as I said. And also, after that first video, he obviously got a lot of eyeballs and ears. That's when he could have pivoted and went behind closed doors and said, hey, let's talk about this at a level where we can actually affect change, like you said, Chaps, and potentially could have had a positive effect. And now everything he might have been able to do has been squandered through all this back and forth. And then anytime you get the two communities, like the Uber, I don't even know how to describe them, but the people who just want to blindly defend the military, no matter what they say and do, regardless of their actions. That community, I don't think, I appreciate everyone's support, but it can get out of hand quickly.
But I don't even think that's to me, that's not even defending the military. Like, it's defending the military under false pretenses. Like, that's not what the military is. And this organization,
it's defending your idea of the military that goes with your beliefs. I don't know. It's weird, but they've raised $1.539 million so far. So pretty smart. Either way, whoever saw him in the first video and was like, we can take advantage of this. Brilliant.
I thought it was going to turn into a congressional run. That's what I thought. I thought he was going to parlay it into a congressional run.
I don't think I don't think anybody saw it from the beginning and thought there was an opportunity there. I think if there was an opportunity that sprung from what happened after the fact. I don't think anyone went from the beginning and thought there was something.
Oh, I do. I think people were licking their chops.
Absolutely.
To make some money off of this, to have some notoriety, to put some t-shirts on it, to do any of that stuff. Like that's exactly where most of these like vet bros, like that kind of culture, that's where it really
a lot of money to be made in it. Truly.
I'm like, what are you doing, man? Because everything that I read about the guy, he was a great leader, great officer. And then you continue to push down this road. Like, why, man? I just don't understand people that have the ability to be influential on two sides of an aisle, or two sides of a very divided political country. Why you toss that away? Like there's certain folks that are going around now that have large military voices, large credibility, and all they want to do is impress the most extreme political views in the country. And I don't understand it. Like, why is that your approach?
Again,
because they like the praise.
$1.539 million, chaps. That might be why. I don't know. I feel like there's way more money to be made being extreme than being middle, go with the flow. Yeah, I personally, best case scenario, he buys a few Chick-fil-A chains, free nuggets for the troops or something.
No, that one.
You can't get that with just 1.3 million. You're gonna need a lot more than that.
True. I don't know how money works.
They're expensive. All right, let's move into round number 1. We're gonna do a little not Sharia goofing, Shakira goofing.
Shakira. You know?
Very, very different. Round number 1, pop star Shakira says she was a victim of a random attack by a pair of wild boars. Before we get going, any of you have experiences with wild boars?
Can't say that I have.
No, but Barstool Outdoors, she just
hog chopping.
She went hog chopping, and the teeth on that thing, it looked like a long ass great white tooth coming down.
Oh yeah, those teeth will fuck you up.
No, those teeth look like they hadn't seen a dentist. The inside of a dentist.
Yeah, they don't.
Negligent.
Yeah, they definitely have yuck mouth. They need to take that survey that I put out on Twitter a couple of weeks ago. That's for sure.
Do.
Mm-hmm.
So these wild boar, they're all over the place in Texas. When I worked at the dog school, the scouting fields where we would teach the dogs how to locate people and track people, they constantly had the teeth of the boar like would go into the ground, and they would root up everything, trying to find like natural little pieces of food that they could eat or whatever. They would eat roots and all acorns and shit like that, like whatever they could find, and they would root them up. We moved out here and we went on this trail walk, me and my wife. Kelsey wasn't down here yet, and we used to have a little dog named Elfie who was a mountain cur, and a mountain cur is like a 40-pound dog that was bred to chase rabbits and things like that. Well, Elfie's ears popped up, and this is when I was like full out dog mode. So I was paying attention to everything that my dog was doing. And we go around this corner and we see a dead Rottweiler was on the side. And the Rottweiler's entire side had been like completely fucked up.
Aww.
And a neighbor, I was like, did you see that Rottweiler? They're like, oh yeah, the wild boars, they'll catch a dog and they'll bring him out to the trail and they'll just fuck him up. I was like,
jeez,
what? I had no idea that's the way they would ruin people's houses. They would ruin people's yards.
They can be up to 700 pounds.
They're huge.
I did not realize how big they could get.
And Shakira is not a big person.
She's a tiny little woman.
Her hips don't lie.
Her hips don't lie.
They don't. They still don't lie at all. And she doesn't lie either, because she was in a park in Barcelona with her 8-year-old son. The Colombian singer said animals attacked her before seizing her bag and retreating with it into the woods. She shared the bizarre trail in a series of Instagram stories on Wednesday, holding the now recovered but torn bag towards the camera. Look at the 2 wild boar which attacked me in the parking lot have left my bag. They continue taking my bag into the woods, and it had my mobile phone in it. Who says mobile phone?
Yeah, right.
Grow up. How old are you? Fucking 80?
She probably saw it online.
They destroyed everything. They said Spanish police, according to this article in 2016, around the Barcelona area, received 1,187 calls about wild boars in Spain.
Okay, but what are they going to go arrest the boars? I guess they can find them and get her bag back if they had run away with it. But what are people calling the police about these boars for? I don't get it.
I know that we don't usually root for extinction. I think boars should go extinct.
Wow, that's a strong statement.
I think it's an animal that just needs to go. Speaking of, there's 23 animals this week that were discovered that were extinct. 23.
What? Yeah, 23, including a woodpecker. I know.
Whoa.
Not the everyday woodpecker.
I think it's the kind of woodpecker that Woody was fashioned after, though.
It's the ivory-billed woodpecker, yes.
That's sad.
Arrivederci, but not the wild boar, of course, not the wild boar.
You know, I was watching something last night, and did you guys know that elephants are on the verge of extinction?
All
elephants.
I feel like we've known that for a while, right?
But we're not doing anything about it. Now
we're just not doing enough. I think that there's certain animals. I know it's bad to say. I don't care if they go extinct. Yeah. Like a wild boar. If wild boars never showed up around anywhere again, who would care? Because you don't eat them. They're usually infested with like worms and stuff. Like that's not really an animal that you eat. Well, if you can't eat it and it's not cute and you can't be around it, get it out of here.
Says there's around 10 million of them across Europe, chaps. They're everywhere. They're like all over the place.
I know.
And people call the cops because if you get surrounded by them, they'll literally kill you.
But what are the cops going to do?
Well,
shoot them.
This says in 2013
they would need to come there instantly.
In 2013, one city police officer attempted to take charge and shot at a boar with his service revolver, but missed and hit his partner instead. Not great. Pistol call is always a scary day.
Spanish, like the Spanish authorities, what are they carrying? 9 mils, probably.
Yeah,
like a 9
that
mil.
Ain't taking down a boar.
You gotta, if you're killing a wild boar with a 9 mil, you gotta light him up like fucking Boondock Saints style. You don't crazy. Have a whole lot of options. There was a fire.
In apparently, Barcelona. They're getting into the cities themselves. Berlin has urban hunters who have killed thousands of them.
Incredible.
I was gonna say, if Sydney Wells from Barstool Outdoors went to do urban boar hunting, fuck yes, I would watch the shit out of that.
If you're in Berlin, you could shoot a boar in the head and then go next door and get a crepe. Are you kidding me?
Exactly, 100%. Yeah.
We actually had a family friend.
What's that?
Because we had a family friend. Deer are so rampant in New Jersey. They're a very big problem. They're not overgrown, but overpopulated all over New Jersey. We had a family friend who would come to our deck in the mornings, 5 a.m, and just sit on our back deck and shoot deer out of our backyard.
See, I couldn't do that. There's 2 houses that we really wanted to buy whenever we bought this house. The first house, my wife liked it more, but it was older, needed a lot more work, but the property was really good. Not as good as the pool, but the property was bigger. And that neighborhood was the type of neighborhood that it was like a deer sanctuary. Every time we went to go get this house, we would go look at this house. There was deer all in the front yard. People had like deer feeders in the HOA where they would come out and put corn down so people would come in. And I just thought, man, sitting out on your front porch or your back porch early fall morning and just watching the deer just skitter about and eating your corn or eating the apples would be so relaxing.
Yeah, but they're destructive. They're very destructive. They'll also eat your plants that you don't want them to eat.
They will.
So, they're not all Bambi.
No, but I love eating deer too. Like the venison.
Oh, venison's delicious.
Kate loves when I talk about venison sausage and start getting the meat sweats. That's her favorite thing. No doubt about it. All right, let's move into a little bit of round number 2. Round number 2 today, we are going to be talking about what? This story is bananas. If this one isn't a Netflix movie, this could probably be a series. Kate, walk us through what happened in round number 2.
Yeah, from the old Tribune News, an ex-U.S. Army Ranger from Connecticut faces extradition to the Netherlands, where authorities say he's part of a plot by former and active duty American soldiers who hired themselves out as professional hit squads and murdered a German businessman. Are you tracking? Okay. Jacob Mazaika grew up in Bristol and was living in New Haven when federal marshals picked him up last spring at the request of the government of the Netherlands, which claims that Mazaika, with comrades from Iraq and Afghanistan, worked for a Swiss businessman trying to collect a commercial debt worth millions of dollars. Much of the investigation revealed by U.S. prosecutors reads like spy fiction. Ex-military specialists summoned from across the world. plans made to track and neutralize the target. Escape by night train to Zurich. Payoff in euro. Efficient Dutch cracked the case using European cell phone networks to track killers across European borders. On November 26, 2019, Dutch police found Schwartz dead on his living room floor. He had been stabbed and beaten. His ribs were broken. He had been punched so hard in the chest that his spine had cracked.
Well, let's talk about that for a second. You get punched so hard in the front that your back breaks?
That doesn't seem real. That doesn't seem real.
That's like Drago, but heightened.
Yeah, his cause of death determined to have been cleaving of his jugular and carotid artery, literally cut him right off. His credit and bank cards were scattered around the home. Someone had plugged the kitchen sink with a rag and submerged his telephones.
The old wet bandits.
Police were able to determine that at 7:19 a.m. on the 26th, one of those phones had been unlocked with a fingerprint and someone had accessed his online banking application. Dutch police knew before finding the body that he had been embroiled in some sort of business dispute. He told friends that other investors were pressing him to sell his shares of this brand Taurus and get out of the investment. He told Dutch police that he had been accosted and threatened in October 2019, about a month before his death, by two strangers who drove by his home and demanded money. When he refused, they told him, expect someone else who would not be so kind.
That would make me nervous. I want to start saying that when I buy stuff on Facebook Marketplace. Like, oh, when I get there, like, oh, actually, we just got another offer for 205. Could you do 210? I mean, like, you told me you were going to sell it to me for 190.
How much you buying on Facebook Marketplace there,
Hoss? Oh, a lot. I love Facebook Marketplace. Yeah. There was a stoolie that came by because we sold a big TV center thing that we had built for our old house, but it didn't really fit here. And the guy came in and it's always awkward when my wife puts stuff on and then she's like, hey, can you go upstairs? Somebody's coming from Facebook Marketplace. I don't know how much she sold it for. I don't know who's coming or anything like that. And so me and the guy, the other husband, are standing in our living room waiting for his wife to send my wife Venmo and then my wife to tell me that she got the Venmo for the money. And we're just sitting there. I'm like in full out football mode, pissed that I have to do this when the Jags are playing. Mm-hmm. And he's like, hey, it was probably because you guys know me. It's pretty obvious when I'm in a bad mood, like my face changes and I don't look happy. You do. And he's like, I don't mean to be rude, but are you chaps from Barstool? And then I was like, fuck, now I got to be nice to this guy.
Damn it.
Yes.
God damn it.
In fact, I am.
Yeah.
Awkward. Well, you know who wasn't very nice? Mozaika.
Exactly right.
Since leaving the army, he had traveled the world as an operative for organizations fighting human trafficking. He and other ex-military types developed intelligence and provided other services. Court records show that his relationship predated Schwartz's death by months. His relationship with these people hiring these debt collectors and stuff like that. So basically, 462,000 euros.
4,6,200 euro. No, 462,000 euro from a German living in the Netherlands. They got 2 attempts to collect this amount of money, but none of them went well at all. And Casey told Fecker he could recruit associates able to stay in Europe indefinitely after the Christmas holiday, but Fecker exploded over the delay. He didn't want to wait anymore. And I would imagine when you have these type of plots, nobody wants to wait around. Like these are the type of people that you're like, hey, I actually can't do it. Something came up. My kid has diarrhea. They're like, I don't give a shit about diarrhea. Get me my money. Get me my money. So he texted Casey, I lose the company next Thursday and I have no right to claim it from Schwartz thereafter. And so then it goes on. It keeps going and going and going.
Yeah, a lot of back and forth.
And by the end of it, they figure out, simply put, Mozaika was integral to planning and the execution of this operation, not a minimal participant. So initially he said that he wasn't big, but they recovered all kinds of encrypted information that they had, including the fact that they had a closed circuit television recording and telephone tracking showing that they surveyed the home, spent the night at the hotel across the border, returned to Schwartz's home in a rented Volkswagen Polo at 6:45 p.m. or a.m. the next day. Neighbors told Dutch police that they heard slamming doors, screaming, banging, and dragging sounds in Schwartz's apartment beginning at 7 a.m., so 15 minutes after they got there. They saw someone jump in the Volkswagen, and they also raced away. They had cell phones tracked crossing back to Germany, where Casey returned the rental car without any floor mats. Investigation later turned up Schwartz's blood was on the car interior. The next day, Casey's girlfriend texted him that she was wiping all contents from the phone because he had misgiving about this last job. Why? He explained to her, I don't have a good feeling about this last job, hun. It was a little sloppy. I hope we don't do something that's going to catch up to me. Last time I'll mention it. Buddy, you did. You got arrested for fucking murder. And this story, if it's not a Netflix story, what else do you need?
What else do you need
to make a movie?
Remember the special forces guys that were, what was the South American country? They were like on a rubber bottom boat going to start a coup because they got hired or whatever.
Yeah, I think it was Haiti. Wasn't it Haiti?
No, that it was somewhere in South America, but the US was like, swear that wasn't us. Like, these are just a bunch of rogue special forces vets who are doing the thing, man. It's weird.
That was the Ben Affleck movie Triple Frontier. That's
right.
No,
but there's a real one too recently. I know what you're talking about, Kate. I don't remember what country.
Right.
I think it was Haiti.
It might be Haiti. I just don't remember specifically.
I will say, if you have all those skills, it's probably tough to like get out and have a cubicle job, you know? You're probably like,
but to think about how many people we've known stories in the last year, we've probably done 3 or 4 stories like this one in the last year. If that's the case, think about how many people are out there doing this type of thing, not getting caught.
Oh,
yeah.
I would say we hear maybe 1/10. If
yeah,
that.
I think 10%. You get caught 10% of the time. I think that's probably right.
Yeah,
but if
there's
you get
so much stuff.
International murder goofing is not something that
crazy.
People, the Netherlands courts, they're pretty much softies over there, but I imagine that even they frown upon it. To that end, do you remember that guy that was like a mass killer in the Netherlands? And he killed like 30 people or some crazy shit, and they only get, because their constitution over there, they are only allowed to give a certain amount of time. It was like 20 years that he got for killing like 30 something people.
Wow.
And their jails are
wild.
like, you have a TV in your own room, you have like a nightstand, you have all this kind of stuff. It looks like a little dorm room.
Yeah, it's William van Ejik. He was a convicted Dutch serial killer known as the Beast of Harksteed. He was convicted for a total of 5 murders.
But Kate, that's a great point.
That's the wrong guy. He died in prison.
Anyway, you learn all these super technical skills, and then you get out and you think to yourself, the last 20 years, 15 years, 10 years, however long you were doing special forces operations, now it's just a waste if you don't keep using them.
The movie Taken, you're like, I have a certain set of skills too.
Oh, yeah. It wasn't the Netherlands. It was Norway. It was Anders Breivik, who's serving 21 years for killing 77 people in a bomb and shooting rampage. 77.
Oh, I remember. You guys don't remember that? I remember that.
Yeah, I definitely remember.
It was
a
at the
manifesto.
camp, all the kids. Yeah, it was terrible.
21 years, that's all.
Jesus H.
I mean, that one, you killed 70 people. You got to go to jail for a lot longer than 20 years.
Yeah, that's
I would say so. Or maybe you just get killed yourself.
Yeah.
Now we're going to get deep into the death penalty.
Anyways, let's move on to round number 3, which we're going to head back over to Afghanistan and do a little Afghanistan goofing with the Taliban, who's doing a little goofing, taking some pictures and doing all kinds everywhere. Every time I turn, every couple of days, you'll see the Taliban's doing something weird that you wouldn't expect, like bumper cars. As soon as they took Kabul, they were on the bumper car train, and then they were in a couple museums, and then they were going to fairs and shit.
It says, when off-duty Taliban fighters have been seen visiting animals at Kabul Zoo, riding bumper cars at amusement parks, taking part in impromptu wrestling, and kicking back in an abandoned mansion in the nation's capital. Them going through the mansion when they discovered there's a swimming pool inside of it, and they were all super excited. There's nothing endearing about the Taliban, and so, but you watch it and you have to catch yourself because you're like, oh, look at them, wait a minute,
so
no
happy.
They're fucking
I
horrible.
hope they drown.
But people at work were asking me, is this Photoshop, the one where on there's Taliban guys with like AK-47s and all sorts of weapons strapped over their backs, but they're on these beautiful duck boats on this beautiful lake, and
they have to be careful because the percentage of Afghanistan that cannot swim.
Pretty high,
very high.
Well, guess.
Probably
93%.
only the guy that owned that mansion could.
Very close cons. 97% of people in Afghanistan can't swim.
Yeah.
Makes sense, though, when you think about it. I mean, are there a lot of lakes in Afghanistan?
There is. There's lots of water. And
The kids Kids around us swam in the canals all the time. Yeah, they would do cannonballs.
And not just that, but like in the mountains, there's some big lakes and things like that. Look it up. Me and Roan spent, we were doing a little 3-chi goof. And so we probably spent a good 2 hours one night in the office, just going through the best lakes and the best swimming spot in Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, Mongolia, and Afghanistan. And there's some spots in those countries that you would not expect that are gorgeous.
You want to introduce them to the tubing culture.
Oh yeah, they love a good lazy river in Pakistan. My goodness gracious,
would change a lot.
So keep walking us through what's going on with these Taliban folks, Kate.
Yeah, but so all these photos are coming out and they go viral each time because they're so ridiculous looking. The juxtaposition of the Taliban fighter doing something kind of cutesy. Thank you. It's not going over well, though. The Wall Street Journal reported that Afghanistan's new defense minister, the son of the Taliban's founder, has told soldiers to stop having so much fun and focus on the task at hand. Stick to the tasks you have been assigned, said Malawi Muhammad Yaqub in an audio message released Thursday. You are damaging our status, which has been created with the blood of our martyrs. Yeah, you get that message. You open your phone and read that as you're on a duck boat.
You roll your eyes. You're like, he's out again. This guy is fucking. I'm going to read the next one, the next quote from him in First Sergeant Lugo's voice. How dare you? This is behavior of the warlords and gangsters of the puppet regime. If we continue to act like this, God forbid, we will lose our entire Islamic system. You
read that while you're on a Ferris wheel eating a giant cotton candy. You're like, ooh, my bad.
This guy's being a real Debbie Downer.
Yeah. Captain No Fun.
Friendly reminder, though, they are not cute and cuddly. In August, they reportedly set fire to an Afghan woman for bad cooking. They raped and beat a gay man in Kabul and all sorts of other, there's fighters hanging bodies from cranes in the city square, all sorts of horrible shit. So lest we
and their leader came out this week, and they were trying to get into the UN. They were trying to have entrance into the UN, and they're like, but before we go back to the UN, we want to be forthright with you guys. We're bringing back the policy of cutting people's hands off. Like we're bringing that back.
They're cutting people's hands off. Women have been banned from schools again already, and all sorts of horrible, terrible shit that I am reading is going down because it's not very well regulated either. There's certain little units, I guess, that are better controlled than others, and some are just going rogue and like being their usual evil selves. So
that's going to happen because they don't. I mean, it's not like they have a UCMJ. They don't have like that type of structure. But you would think that the threat of getting murdered in the middle of the street would be a lot more than catching an NJP. You would think that punishment would keep you in line for good order and discipline as they see it. But it is crazy. And it's even more crazy while things are going on like that. And they're getting more and more control over all the different towns and provinces, that we're still getting people out and having the ability to get people out. There was a plane that left yesterday and then another one this morning. Yesterday I had 150 Americans that were on it, and there was another 100 that came today that left Afghanistan. So that's good. Hopefully more and more people are able to leave, which leads us right to round number 4, where we're going to talk a little bit about what happened in these hearings, because the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff was called to testify in front of the Senate Arms Committee and the House Arms Committee this week. And they spent hours.
The Legs Committee.
What's that?
It's
never the Legs Committee.
No, it's the Arms Committee.
It's always the Arms Committee.
And so they brought them all in. They're all both of the generals, both 4 stars, are in their dress uniforms, and they're addressing the different senators from across the country and the different congressmen across the country. One day is the Senate, and the next day is the House. And they're having all these different conversations about what needed to happen. And throughout this, and explaining what did happen, they were explaining that they told President Biden that they thought that a 2,500 force needed to remain in Afghanistan in order to have proper security. Some of them said that they thought it would have been a good idea to keep Bagram looking back and having hindsight, like that would have worked. They reiterated the fact that they didn't think that the Taliban could take over the country in such a short amount of time, which I still don't know how that was the thought process that they were going to.
Can we just pause there for a second?
Cut the bullshit with that. You knew.
It's okay.
They'd already taken
over.
If
you knew, and you can say like, "Hey, we were wrong. We knew this was going to happen."
Or just say it was going. It's inevitable. It's going to happen as soon as we leave. This is going to happen. Like, tell the American people what you're about to see. That gives you so much more confidence in the intel that we get, that we know what's going to happen. Now it looks like our intel looks like shit, like across the board. The things that we don't know is unbelievable at this point. Like, you would think you have the ability to know everything. Like, I always thought the American military, the American intelligence community, they know everything about everything.
Yes.
Not the case.
We're never wrong about anything.
Not the case. So they're talking about that. They're talking about the different dates. They're talking and trying to tell the Senate and tell the House that we have to have a bigger picture. We can't look at Afghanistan in the microcosm of the last 15 months or even 15 days or even 15 years. We have to look at the entire scope of what happened in Afghanistan that got us to this point, because nothing that happened in the last 15 months really played any part. It was everything. It was a cumulative effort, a cumulative failure, and we need to acknowledge that. And it sounded like the chairman and the CENTCOM commander were both on board in doing that and having a real conversation about how we move on from here. Well, you had certain senators who, in my estimation, because I watched every single minute of it, and it was excruciating in a lot of parts. And some of the senators came prepared to ask questions that I think would glean a little bit of fruit, that it would be a worthwhile conversation. Did you tell the president this? Did he ignore it? I think that's a valid question to ask. Did the president have it? The two generals, both of them, had fantastic answers where they said, look, because this was when Tom Cotton had said, the senator from Arkansas, he said, if you gave the advice to the president and he didn't take it, why didn't you resign? And both of them kind of reiterated the point, and not the same words, but very close. That's not the job of the general. The general's job is to advise the commander in chief about what we believe is the best military option moving forward to achieve the objective at hand. It is the president's responsibility, as voted by the American people, to accept that advice or to ignore that advice or to not act on that advice in the moment. And I think that's the best answer that you could possibly give. Like, you told the president what you thought in your expertise. He is not bound to take that advice. The Secretary of Defense is not bound to take that advice, but you gave it. And then going back and say, should he give it or should it not? That's not appropriate, because that's calling to question your chain of command. And that's not something that we do. For me, as a subject matter expert, I go back to my days as a dog handler. If I tell a battalion commander, this is not a good idea, sir, like, or ma'am, like, this is not a good idea. If we need to clear this route, this is not the best way to do it safely, because that was my responsibility. My responsibility was to clear a route as safely as possible so that the Marines could have freedom of movement whenever we needed to move forward. I would say, I suggest that we go this way, or we do this. This is the best way that my dog can work. The battalion commander could look at me dead ass in my face and say, Corporal, Sergeant, Staff Sergeant, I don't give a fuck what you say. We're not doing it that way. We're doing it this way. Thank you for your advice and your expertise, but we're going to do it this way. And I would be completely fine with that.
Yeah.
And then also too, you have to execute, because that's the way the chain of command works.
Yeah. And if he told me, I want you to do it this way, unless it goes against our like orders and regulation, it's a lawful order, I'm going to do it the way that he wants me to do it. Like, that's just the way it goes down. And you understand that. So when we're having all these conversations, the part that really pisses me off is this idea somehow that Milley is a traitor, because they called into question again his conversations that he had with his Chinese counterpart and saying that he wanted to reassure. His answer there was great too, and people just don't want to accept it. It's this partisan policies, and it's not just Republicans, it's Democrats too, because the Democrats were trying to act like everything for some reason was Trump's fault still, which is complete nonsense as well. Like, if you're the only people in the room who were asking for a whole view of everything that was going on, it was two people, or three, the two generals that were standing there and Tammy Duckworth. Tammy Duckworth was the only other person who was like, we need to figure out what actually happened so we don't do this again. How did we do it in Vietnam? Do we really have any lessons learned? Because that's the part that's frustrating, is at the end of the day, you had the very last senator that came up was talking about to call into question their patriotism is unconscionable, which I agree. Calling the patriotism of two generals is ridiculous. These guys have spent 40 years in uniform protecting, defending the Constitution of the United States. They don't hate America. Yeah. To suggest otherwise is fucking insane.
You don't just get the 4 stars just kind of like hanging out and sticking around for waiting on that pension. You are doing that because you actually love this country and want to serve it.
Right. And so you have that part. And then he was like, we don't need to go back and look at different things and what could have gone this way and what could have gone that way and how to fix that. I disagree with that. I think that's exactly what you have to do. And in order to do that, I don't think you could just broad stroke and say everything is fine and nothing bad ever happened. I think there needs to be some fingers pointed. Because that's how you get away from that kind of stuff.
Every 05 and above, whoever went on the news and said this exact phrase, we're turning the corner, we're fucking demote them, fucking kick them out. I'm done with them. Fuck you. Every single one of them. I don't care which side of the aisle they fall on, whatever. For the last 20 years, everybody feeding that narrative when they knew it wasn't true and keeping the public going with it. When they should have been transparent, like, oh, it's a guy fuck not going great. Like, I don't know. Clearly I'm still angry about
and they even mentioned some of the things about having to get away from the promotion system and the award system when I was like, hell yeah, like that's exactly what needs to happen. That's the reason why I really believe promotions and awards are the biggest step, the biggest hurdle in order to move past military failures. Like it really is, because nobody wants to admit that they did anything wrong. Everybody wants to look great. And those 8 or 9 paragraphs that summarizes their year of accomplishment when they're deployed.
Yeah.
Well, that's that.
A lot of turds shining.
Oh, but just please, let's reiterate Gates. He needs a swift. I don't want to promote violence, but I don't know. I just didn't appreciate his tone. You know, if you want to hold Millie's feet to the fire, if you want to hold his feet to the fire and you want to have a line of questioning that goes after him, I think that's fine. But I still think it requires a level of decorum that he's earned. He's earned that level of respect. And you
could tell he wanted to fucking choke slam him. Like, and he should, like, he had that look. I have Colonel Jessup behind me. Yeah. He had that look where he wanted to look at Gates and be, you fucking people. You weakened the country today, son.
Yeah, it was very much a Lionel Caffey, Colonel Jessup,
a lawyer and a congressman in the United States House of Representatives,
with a little bit of a taste for young women.
Yeah, the audacity of that guy, unbelievable. But I love because you usually don't see generals argue back and forth with congressmen because how like the rank structure work. Technically, they are higher ranking than a general would be, even though obviously it doesn't really matter. But when he was saying that, like, you should resign, you betrayed your oath, and he's like, no, I didn't.
Yeah.
No. Going back, like there's some things that you just can't let a sniveling little punk like Matt Gaetz do. And that's exactly, he's sniveling little conniving little piece of shit. That guy's garbage, trash. Let's move on to save rounds and alibis. Nick, we'll start with you. Oh, Save Rounds Alibis presented by our good friends at Rocky Boots, by the way.
Well,
Rocky Boots are the best boots in the biz. I'm going to start doing some hikes now that it's getting cooler. I live by 2 wonderful trails. Can't wait to do that. I'm going to be doing that in my Rocky Boots. Make sure you go to rockyboots.com with the promo code ZBT. You're going to get 25% off. This episode is coming out on October 1st, which is not only payday, it's the beginning of a new fiscal year. So some of you might be getting promoted soon. You're going to have more money in your pocket. You're going to be doing all those things. So you might as well do it with clouds on your feet that are going to protect them with steel toes or whatever type of toes you want. Go to rockyboots.com with the promo code ZBT. Nicholas, we'll start with you, pal.
Yeah, so for my saved round, may have seen it earlier today, but I'm putting Google on Firewatch. So my mother texted me earlier this morning and she said they took my Google away. She said her life is over and that she can't make her art anymore because Google is no longer on her computer. So she's in a frantic panic, which I don't appreciate because I love my mother. So, I'm going to be on the hunt for Google later today and hopefully restore that. But I'd appreciate that if Google would reappear on my mother's computer.
Firewatch Google.
Classic Google.
There's a poll out there if anyone wants to, take it.
There's a new show with Jon Stewart called The Problem that's premiering today, the 30th of September. So when you're listening, it's already premiered on Apple TV. I think he's kind of talking about advocating for the people who have worked down at World Trade Center post 9/11 and veterans as well, and had problems with the VA. So I'm interested to watch that and see how that goes. I think he's obviously been a very strong advocate for a long time now for all these communities. So I think they'll probably do a great job with that. And then also yesterday, I quote tweeted my pal Ross Tucker because he said there was a big fan of the Big Pretzel appetizer. And I said, the Big Pretzel, when you go to like a random sports bar that you've never been to, the Big Pretzel, I think, is in the top 3 of safe choice that always delivers and apps. And that comes alongside mozzarella sticks and calamari.
Mozzarella sticks are not safe. They're garbage 90% of the time, dude.
You're wrong. I'm just going to tell you, like,
garbage. I've been getting mad about them recently.
But you're wrong.
I hate
think that's
mozzarella
safe.
sticks.
They suck 90% of the time. There's some frozen garbage that the restaurant upcharges you a ton for, and they fucking suck.
Mm-hmm. I think you're both wrong.
I stand by it. But good on the pretzel, though. Correct.
I like the calamari.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Well, all right. That's all I got.
I like your pronunciation of the calamari.
Galama. Thank you, Lars.
By the way, Nick, did you watch Stanley Tucci searching for Italy?
No, I did not.
You should. What's interesting though is when you go and you watch that show, all the people in Italy, they all pronounce the words correctly, and then people have bastardized them. The Italian Americans have bastardized the pronunciations in New York and New Jersey, and they say it all wrong because nobody actually in Italy says galamar. They actually do say calamari. So I just thought that was interesting that the people who actually created the words and the language are saying it one way, and all the people here and the phony baloney Italians are saying it a different way.
Yeah, I mean, you just got to cut off the end of each word.
Yeah.
That's basically the way it is.
Yeah.
It's like my father walks around calling people gindaloons.
Yeah.
All day, you know.
Have a little spaghetti.
Yeah, exactly. That's all you need. Just don't finish the word, and you can sound like a real Brooklyn Italian.
Yeah, that's what it drives my wife crazy because Kate and I went and did a Brooklyn food tour with Large, and he told us all those phrases that we need to do, and now I do it all the time here in Texas. And we'll go to a restaurant and be like, "Oh, the galamad." My wife would be like, "God damn it!"
Like
Nobody knows.
Like it's biscotti, but people say, "Yo, you want a biscotti?"
Yeah,
it's like, why are you doing that?
Mm-hmm.
But you know,
mm-hmm. Catherine.
Babies out of daycare all week because hand, foot, and mouth disease is going around. And, I just feel like every time I start to get back in the swing of things, they pull me right back in.
Mm-hmm.
It is really hard to get shit done when you have a baby, it turns out. I don't know how the Teen Moms did it for my favorite MTV show. I am
very good point
in my 30s and I'm like, am I an idiot? I cannot figure out how to get shit done. Anyway, that's fine. Also, we did a post on Zero Block 30 yesterday. It was from a TikTok about a gentleman who got cancer from drinking water on Camp Lejeune, young fella. He got leukemia. The amount of comments on the TikTok and our own Instagram post about it of other troops saying, "Yep, I got the same cancer as you." Insane. Something I'm probably going to look a little more into for a future episode. I know we already knew that was a problem, but that it continues to be, and that I feel like there's just so much more to it. Also, what else did I have? Oh, fuck DynCorp. They made like $2.6 billion in the war in Afghanistan, and they're one of the worst offenders fucking up people's paperwork, interpreters, and Afghan allies' paperwork. Just general fuck you to DynCorp. Worst fire watch of the weekend for you coming up. So that's it for me. Yeah.
I have one last note, everybody. There's a lot of hullabaloo going on about this new budget that they're trying to pass because apparently we're going to run out of money soon. But we're having a continuing resolution, I guess. But people are freaking out.
The amount of comments on the TikTok and our own Instagram post about it of other troops saying, "Yep, I got the same cancer as you." Insane. Something I'm probably going to look a little more into for a future episode. I know we already knew that was a problem, but that it continues to be, and that I feel like there's just so much more to it. Also, what else did I have? Oh, fuck DynCorp. They made like $2.6 billion in the war in Afghanistan, and they're one of the worst offenders fucking up people's paperwork, interpreters, and Afghan allies' paperwork. Just general fuck you to DynCorp. Worst fire watch of the weekend for you coming up. So that's it for me. Yeah.
I have one last note, everybody. There's a lot of hullabaloo going on about this new budget that they're trying to pass because apparently we're going to run out of money soon. But we're having a continuing resolution, I guess. But people are freaking out because the number is $3.5 trillion, which comes out. It's a 10-year deal, 3.5 trillion, which comes out to $350 billion a year. But Imagine if they did the military budget that way and they talked about it over 10 years. That current budget would be at 7.5 trillion. So the way that they are formulating those arguments in the media makes you think that it's a lot more money than it actually is, because the infrastructure of America is falling so far behind other developed countries that we need to do something. And I don't think spending half of what we spend on the military to make the country successful for the next 150, 200 years is really a big problem. It's probably something that we should do. And if you don't believe that, just go Google real quick. And Nick's mom could do this once she gets it back. Google how many bridges have collapsed in the last 10 years. The number will blow you away. Sound the retreat.